Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? How rich is rich really? We've been talking here a little bit about income disparity, and I wanted to take a closer look at what we mean when we say rich. When I'm talking about the rich, I'm not talking about your doctor that makes $400,000 a year. I'm not talking about a small businessman who's worked hard and has built themselves a good life. These people are successful, they're affluent, they have a net worth that puts them in the top 10% of Americans. However, they're not who I'm talking about when I say rich. I'm talking about people whose wealth and income we can't even wrap our heads around. And I'll give you this figure to remember because we're going to get back to it later. I have a net worth of about $100,000. Jeff Bezos, on the other hand, has a net worth of about $240 billion. Now that's a big gap. When we get back to that, I'm going to express it in a way that will blow your frickin' mind, guaranteed. Now it's important to realize that we're talking about wealth or net worth, not income, because those things are not the same. And while they may correlate very strongly, you can have a person that's making $35,000 a year with a much higher net worth than a person that's making $75,000 a year, probably because they're spending wisely and living life within their means. But let's look at some figures when we're talking about wealth. In order to be within the top 10% of Americans in terms of wealth, you have to have a net worth of about $2.2 million. At that level, you're probably talking about having a home that's paid off and some really good retirement accounts and maybe some investments. We're pretty much talking about the millionaire next door, the successful local business owner. That's a place I like to be. You're pretty well off financially, but essentially you're still kind of upper middle class. In order to be within the fabled top 1% of Americans, you need a net worth of somewhere around $11 to $14 million and up. So we've moved out of the doctor and dentist world. We're out of the small business person world. We're talking about people that have serious equity in businesses and investments, where their investment income is a lot more than any kind of paycheck they might be getting. When we start talking about the ultra-rich, it starts at the 0.01%. Here, you need about $60 million to join the club in terms of net worth. If you want to be in the top 0.01%, where things get really interesting, well, you've got to have a net worth of at least $100 million. These people live in a completely different world than you and I. They don't live within the economy, they own it. At this point, people still say, well, isn't my doctor that's making $400,000 a year rich? Well, yes and no, but wealth does not equal your income. The median household income in the United States right now is $70,000, and the average net worth is under $200,000. So I fall below the average net worth right now. People can make good money in the working and middle class, but it's still very easy to get into debt. But the more money you make, the higher your net worth, well, those two things tend to coincide a little bit more. The top 10% make about $245,000 a year, and their net worth is somewhere around $1.8 million. But remember, these aren't really rich people. They're kind of upper middle class. The top 1%, well, they show incomes of around $600,000 to $750,000 a year. The top 0.1%, they make somewhere around $3.3 million a year in wages, and that's not even counting things like investments. For the top 0.01%, well, they start to make real money. With a lot of times they have good years of 8 figures, and the IRS reports something like $12 million a year as an average, but they can make a lot more than that. Your poor doctor, he or she just can't compete. And I have friends that are doctors, so sorry guys, you're not in the club. And we didn't even talk about billionaires. There are something like 902 billionaires in the United States. That's one for every 385,000 people, something like that. They're very rare, but they own something like 4% of all the wealth of the United States. So let's get back to me and Jeff Bezos. Now, I have a net worth of somewhere around $100,000, give or take. I have a house, but I'm still paying it off. And I also owe money for my daughter's college loan, and I owe money for like credit card debt and medical debt. So it's somewhere around there. Now, if you were to multiply by 1,500, you would end up with somebody with a net worth of $150 million. You're square in the 0.01%. That person is ultra rich. But if you multiply their worth by 1,500, just like you multiplied mine, you would get $225 billion, not even the $240 billion that Jeff Bezos is worth. So I am to that ultra-rich person what that ultra-rich person is to Jeff Bezos. Jeff has money that is just absolutely staggering. 11.1% of the population live at or below the poverty line. And if Jeff gave half of his money to those people and split it equally among them, each one of them would receive $3,261, and he would still have half of his money left, $120 billion. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about people that are rich. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the ultra-rich that are ruining the economy. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about wealth disparity. Have a good one, kids. Thanks a lot for watching. As the sun's been going down, the lighting's been getting different. I would love to hear your comments on this, what your experiences have been. What do you think about this? Do you think none of this matters, or does it make you mad? Does it blow your mind? It blew mine when I started to take out the calculator and really crunch the numbers. It was really freaky. I had no idea it was that big of a gap. What about you?